All right, you maggots, listen up. Now, after I do a project and I do a video on it, it might be several months before it takes off and people start finding it and making comments or building it. Now, as far as my uh, power supply for the BC348 goes, one or two people have built it or have notified me that they built it. And one guy used a larger transformer. It's an isolation transformer. It's a triad, and it's used backwards. We put AC into it, 120 volts AC in it, and we get 220 out, and we send it to a full wave bridge to get our high voltage. Now, I didn't know at first if I could use that transformer backwards. See, normally it's a transformer that takes 220 and makes 110. I went around and I found several people on the internet that actually used the transformer backwards. I had been using transformers backwards to get the high voltage in the command radios and other projects that I built. I know it was possible, and nothing better than taking a brand new transformer that's made to step down AC and then working it backwards. You have more of a chance it's going to be more efficient and it's not going to get too warm. Now, like I said, the one guy used a larger one. Uh, what I based this triad one on, let's see if I'm in the frame. And I must warn you, my fingernails may be too long for you, and I might misspeak. But this is one of the early BC348 power supplies. It's the same power supply, but the difference is the components, these components are now underneath the plate. There's a space under in this spot for the original dynamotor. And I put them there because as I was taking this in and out, I was afraid I was going to grab the high voltage and shock myself. Or I kept noticing I was bending these two capacitors. So I went the next step and I redesigned it again. And this is one of the older designs. The video I show you about making the plate and all that, that's the newer version. Same circuit. Two capacitors, resistor, 500 ohm, 10 watt. Here's your full wave bridge. Real simple circuit. I have people, hey, how come you didn't show me the circuit, blah, blah, blah. Well, you should know how to make it. If you're rebuilding and rebuilding or repairing a BC348, that should be second nature for you, how to put the supply in. Now, I want to go over to the Hellcrafters. It does exist. Hellcrafters made a power supply that drops right in this radio. And there is no choke. I'll get to that in a minute if I remember. So on the groups, somebody will say, I want to build a power supply for BC348. And instead of them pointing the person in the right direction, right away they'll say, oh, there is a power supply. It's made by Hellcrafters. And then they'll send the guy off, send him off to get a bucket of steam, basically. You can't get that power supply. I seen one once on eBay. They wanted $175 for it, and it needs to be recapped. The original Hellcrafters, it uses a 5Y3, and it's going to need a new capacitor in it. So I looked at it, and I'm saying, okay, let me look at the transformer first. And I went looking all around, and I could not locate the transformer that Hellcrafters used. The Hellcrafters has a transformer about this big. It does the filaments at 24 volts. And it does also makes high voltage for your high voltage power supply section. So you have room for the tube and the capacitor. See, you're looking at stuff that's been miniaturized, but I still had to locate a transformer that was big enough to light the filaments in 24 volts. This is an original radio. It's not been rewired for 6.3. So you need a transformer that's going to have enough oomph to light all the tubes. There's two series strings, and one is like the one guy said 400 milliamps, the other's 600. Well, anyway, this does it. This transformer. And I have a complete video on making the supply and what you need. But what I want to do is just give you an idea of my thought process. So I couldn't get the Hellcrafters transformer, so I realized I would need one to heat the filaments up, and then somehow make the high voltage to for the plates of the tubes. Well, other people use a module from eBay. Well, what happens is that thing puts out a lot of noise. It's a switching supply. They just drop it in there. You know, they do the video. Hey, look, it works. Tune it on to a station that it's not interfering with. I can tell you, you drop a switching supply into this radio, you can, all hell's going to break loose. I hear music. Hold on. Oh, that's my Amazon package. The girl's at the doorbell. I have a musical doorbell. Sorry about that. I didn't want to stop the video. So basically, I come up with a way to make the Hellcrafters power supply. I didn't locate one and then say, look what I have. You don't have it, blah, blah, blah. That's what other people do. They have the Hellcrafters power supply, but their radio doesn't work. That's how I roll, right? A lot of the articles tell you to take the dynamo motor off the plate and use that plate. I consider that bad news. That dynamo motor sitting on that plate, to a purist, you can get $150. You know, $100 to $150, depending on how good a condition that is. So you take say $100 dynamo motor, and you gaff it in order to get the plate, instead of just taking a piece of aluminum. So that's the other decision I made. I show you in the video me fitting the aluminum plate so it drops in here just like the dynamo plates. Just a simple piece of aluminum, right? There's no choke. Hellcrafters did not use a choke in the power supply, in the high voltage section. And a purist will say, oh, you got to have a choke in there, blah, 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 blah. Well, they do. They put a choke in this little space. The problem with a choke is you don't want to mount it near a transformer. If you mount it near a transformer, it picks up the AC hum and puts it into your power supply. Didn't know that, huh? Yeah, well, the big mouths don't know that. So basically what they do is they add a choke into the circuit to get rid of AC ripple or hum, and then they add it in because they mount it too close to a transformer. That's in my thinking. I'm like, I looked at their designs, and I'm like, that's a joke. All right? So then I moved on from that. The isolation transformer reverse, I went over that. And this full weight bridge here, it's black. You might not show up that good in the video, but this thing's good for 600 volts. This is salvaged out of probably out of a computer supply. These two capacitors, I bought them on eBay. But this is a basic circuit here. I think it's a pi. It's a pi. Let's call it pi. It looks like pi because two capacitors with the resistor between them. So out of the high voltage transformer, that's in backwards, comes, we'll just say 220 volts. And then there's more than that. You got to do your peak to peak. So the high voltage, the high voltage AC comes out, goes through the rectifier, gets turned into DC, goes through the first capacitor. It gets smoothed out there. Then it goes through a resistor to another capacitor. That's the pi network, and that smooths it out even more. I found the amount of ripple in the audio is very, very low. And when I saw Hellcrafters didn't bother to put a choke in, I said, no choke. But there are people that build the supply, that put a choke on this board. They gaff a dynamo motor and use the plate. So they have their choke too close to a transformer. So they have ripple because they made the choke add the ripple to the circuit. I just wanted to show you my thought process in making this. All right. I went and double checked that there were people using this transformer. It's a 220 volt transformer, stepped down to 110. It's an isolation transformer, and I use it in reverse. And I gave you the numbers on that other video. And that's how I roll. And I know other people used it in reverse, so I used it. I've done that before. But I just want to tell you, you know, don't gaff up a dynamotor, because you might want to sell that and get some money for your next project. And down here, this is a piece of trim channel, and it's got a hole in it, and it's on the same bolt as the transformer, and it's got a strain relief, a Hayco strain relief in it. And then when you undo 4 bolts on the end here, or down this end, there's a piece of L channel, or you could use another piece of this trim channel, and that has your terminals. You might want to add terminals to it so it looks just like the Hellcrafter supply or the Dynamotor supply. The Dynamotor's got a terminal strip. Look at the Dynamotor, the way it looks. Look at the Hellcrafter's drop-in circuit. It's all on the internet, and then you'll see why I came to the conclusions that I came in, because I built things a certain way. And you know, originally I had a power supply outside the radio, but when you're working on the radio and you want to turn it over, it's much easier to have the power supply finished and inside. And I didn't use, the radio itself has a fuse on the high voltage line, so there is no fuse on the power supply. I'm pretty certain the Hellcrafters, they might have a fuse on it, I'm not sure, but I'm using the fuse that's in the radio that went to the dynamotor to protect the reverse transformer circuit. The filament there's no fuse on that. That there really isn't on most radios. But yeah, this is one of my 3 BC348s. I really like this radio. The only thing that I don't like about it is there's several different models. Some don't have an antenna trimmer on there. I really like the antenna trimmer. This one has 3 IF cans. Is it in the frame? This one back here. There's one back here. This one has 3. Some have 4. This is the cheaper version of the original. See, as the war went on, they made the radio a little cheaper. And that's, I told you about radios. When you realize what it's being used for, and you know, the aircraft is in the air, it's talking between the aircrafts, and how much sensitivity or selectivity you really need. But when it was originally made, they put the most they could into the BC348 because they didn't know how it was going to be used. And then as the war went on, they dummied it up a little bit. I have all 3 versions of the radio made by different manufacturers. I think there's like 4 different companies that made these. These are really unique. It's all aluminum. I got this one's really nice and clean inside. I recapped it. I show you how to recap it. There's a trick to it. You have to grab a hold of those domino type capacitors with a pair of pliers and move them up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down till the leads break loose. And then put the capacitor in front of it. Go look at the video. That's the trick. Otherwise, you try to get back in there and get those capacitors out first. You'll lose your mind. Go look at my videos. I put a lot of thought into my videos. I watch other people's videos and I realize they don't have a lot of experience. I have a lot of years of experience. I told you, I was single. I come home from work. I work on this stuff to hide. I hid from you. I didn't hide from society. I'm a pretty friendly person. But in other words, my whole world is radios. I like to lay in bed and think about what I worked on for the day and what I'm going to work on tomorrow. And the hobby for me has come to a screeching end because I built several versions of crystal radios. It's dozens of versions. And I found that one that worked the best. And I told you where to go get the schematic. That's what I do. When I finally realize this is what you want to do, I do it, then I show you. Now, like I said, there's 2 versions of my power supply. This is one of the early versions. Here comes a truck. I got buses that drive by my house here, school buses, dump trucks, garbage trucks, trucks that are lost. It's a dump truck. All right. Yeah, and I got the window open, and I just got done with the landscaper. He does the complex across the street. And he's one of those guys that he doesn't just pull the trigger back on the weed whacker or the lawnmower. You might hear him off in the distance. he has to keep gunning the motor. He's one of those people. He just can't let the motor run and mow the lawn. It's got to be, and he's deadly with the weed whacker, gunning it the whole time, you know. And sometimes he's an hour on that complex. And so he just finished up. He's down the back now with the lawnmower. But I think that's it. All right, that's it.